guys are having a great time. In this video, we're going to learn about pins. Pins is an important concept in chess that every chess player must know to enhance their knowledge of the game. Pins are like super complicated. They come in many ways, and in this video I will show you 3 positions which involves using pins. So let's get right into it. The first position is this, as you've seen in the board. So in this concept, we're gonna learn about pressuring pins. So what is a pin? Let's just dive into that. What is a pin? A pin is something like this. You are paralyzing a piece. You're paralyzing a piece. And how you're doing that? Well, if that knight moves, you will take a piece that is higher worth, and that will be terrible. So, for example, if you go and move like, how about this? Then you will respond with the obvious capture of the queen, and you're just like, you have a clear advantage. In this case, it's not so bad because the bishop can activate itself, and I think I accidentally resized the board, and can really do some damage. If you haven't seen our video on how to do king attacks or king safety, I recommend you watch that, since this is definitely a major problem for king safety, and this was a set position, so I tried my best to make this look real. Anyway, back on the show. If that knight moves, you take the queen, and it's easy wins for you because you have an extra queen, and that's it. So basically, the move bishop g4 is pinning the knight to the queen. That's what you say. It's paralyzing it, and if it moves, it takes a piece higher worth than itself. So now that you know a basic understanding of what pins are, let's get into pressurized pins. Pressurized pins are pieces that are already pinned while being added with extra support on that piece. Why is this important? Sometimes this can either damage your structure, damage your opponent's structure, or be able to take a piece from your opponent's structure. So I have moved the knight on e5, where it is pressuring the knight on f3, and while it's being pinned. So this is really bad for its opponent. The best thing its opponent should do, in this case white, is to play h3, because h3 kicks away the bishop, and once the bishop gets back kicked out, it will push further, and now white actually has a solid advantage. So in this case, you most likely want to take, because once you take, remember, putting pressure here, it's putting pressure, solid pressure. So if that queen takes, you will just take with the knight, and you're up material, so they have to play this, damaging the structure. So that's not that good. And that's why putting pressure is extremely severe and amazing. You really want to put pressure on the pin piece before you just take the piece. Like, if this knight was not here, pretend this knight was like over here, and then you just visualize this. If you take, the queen would just take, and the queen would be happy there. No pawn damage towards the king's safety. That's putting pressure on the pin piece. Hopefully that position will tell you this is a perfect position to do that, since I made sure that the king was on the side where it castled for this pin to be activated. And this happens a lot in a lot of your games. Trust me, it will happen, and that's why most people will, to dodge that, they will most likely play a move like h3 to block that square where the bishop will be trying to stand on. Okay, so that's our first position done. Hopefully you guys like that position. Now let's move on to the second position. Now this is the second position. This is more complicated, but this is called fake defending. You see my video last time on tactical defending. This is called fake defending. This is using and abusing the pins to your advantage. So right now, what is a pin? We talked about pins on if when the queen was over here getting pinned. Well, I know that would be a major advantage. For example, in our last position right here, this was being pinned. But in our position right now, it's being pinned to the queen. It's being pinned to the king. If the knight moves, then we take the king. However, that's not legal in chess. So when a piece is pinned to the king, that piece cannot move, it cannot attack, capture, or most importantly, defend other pieces. So, since this is pinned, look what white has just done. White has moved a piece to the center, thinking that this knight over here cannot take it because of this knight. However, as we just discovered that since the bishop is pinning the knight to the king, it's technically not defending that knight. So, in real terms, you could just take the knight while via putting pressure on this knight on c3. This is a concept called fake defending, and it's when you pin a piece to the king so that piece can physically not move. I'll just play a random move to show you guys that piece cannot move. Chess.com is not letting me move that piece. That's because it is pinned to the king. And that's what you gotta watch out. You don't just play these moves and say that it's defending. It's not. It's really not. Because after the knight on f6 takes on e4, the knight on e4, the whole position falls down. You're up a piece. Good times. Now, let's get into this next position. Okay, so this is the final position. This one is really crazy. This one is super insane. It might not be using the pins as you think. Right now, okay, let me just flip the board since white is meant to be winning in this position. There's one mate that is super insane. So pause the video, tell me if you can see it. Okay, so hopefully you guys could have seen it, but I'll walk through it. So right now, let's see what's happening. Black is 100% winning. As you can see, it's winning by 8 points. And the only thing that white has is a really nice bishop, an active rook, and a knight that's about to be moved. Now this is the whole foreshadowing moment. Because have you noticed that bishop cut out this king's oxygen square? And these two are covered by the pawns. So it just needs to be checked. Well, look for checks. As you can see it, knight g6 wins the game. Amazing mate. Because you might be like, wait, that pawn can just take. No, it can't. As you can see, this is using the pin to the pawn. This pawn is being pinned to the king. So that, remember, that if a piece is pinned to the king, it cannot defend, capture, or attack. That cannot attack that. They cannot capture that piece. So this move, it can't capture since the rook is pinned, and this is happening, and that's just such a great mate that if you get this in your games, bravo, that's an amazing mate to find. And yeah, so how you want to visualize this is that this is technically, if you move the knight, this pawn cannot do anything. It literally can't do anything. So, think for a check now. Since you're getting so close to the king, just think of a check. And that move. Knight g6, checking the king. The bishop covers the corner. And the rook pins the pawn to the king. And that is GG's for the game. Now, these things are really hard to find, but if you can find them, it's super great. It's amazing. It feels good, and you should be proud. Okay, so now we get to this conclusion of the video. Hopefully you guys liked my video today. I try my best every time to set these positions. And yeah, it was a fun time recording this mate. And hopefully you guys liked it. So, goodbye.